Good morning, family, and welcome to today's Lessons for Life. Today is Sunday, November the 9th, 2008, and today we're reading Genesis chapter 41, and there's really a lot in this chapter, so as always, once again, I'm going to say it. I encourage you to read the entire chapter through for yourself and see what you get out of it, and you can share it with us on the blog. But one thing I want you to understand is that, even though we have chapter breaks, like we have chapter 40 and 41 and, 40, all these different chapter breaks, it's really just part of the same story. It's kind of like how you have a commercial break on TV. So we kind of are repeating even some of the lessons that we got from yesterday with this, because we're talking here also now about dreams, but now about Pharaoh's dreams. And Joseph's actually able to interpret Pharaoh's dreams for him. And what happened, Joseph once again says that, it's not me that's interpreting the dream, but it's actually God that's going to interpret the dream and give you peace. Because Pharaoh was unsettled because he didn't get an interpretation for the dream. It says the spirit was unsettled. So Joseph he shows again the same lesson we got yesterday, that it's not him that's doing the interpretation, but it's really God that's doing the interpretation, just using Joseph. And I think that's once again an important lesson for us to understand and learn. It's the second time we're getting it. Just like even in this chapter, you see that Pharaoh had a dream for the second time, meaning that God had really set that thing up. But this is the second time we're learning the same lesson, and it's something that I think is vital for us to understand, that the things that we get is not by our own means, but actually by God and us working in alignment with God. So that's even how, if you see what happens after Joseph is able to interpret the dream for Pharaoh, then Pharaoh appoints Joseph basically second in command over all of Egypt. And I actually said that incorrectly, because what I saw there was that Pharaoh actually didn't really appoint Joseph the man second in command, but he actually appointed the God in Joseph second in command. Because you'll see that it says, the Pharaoh says, well, where can I find someone so discreet and wise? But he recognized that God was in Joseph, because he also said that the Spirit of God was in Joseph, and he recognized there was no other man where the Spirit of God there was no other man in that land where the Spirit of God was in him like it was in Joseph. So that's why he actually appointed Joseph, or actually the God in Joseph, as second in command over all of Egypt. So what I noticed there was that because of Joseph being really working with God and understanding that it's not by his power, but really by God's power in him, and him utilizing that power, and him demonstrating that power, then that's where he got that appointment of being second in command in Egypt. So it's not that's an important lesson for us to learn, so that we can understand that we're not doing stuff by ourselves. As we've learned before, God in me makes the majority. So when you're working with God and God is on your side, then nothing is impossible for you to accomplish, as long as you keep that, it's not you, it's really God that's doing it through you, and you're just being used by God. And that's an important lesson that for us to know here. So like I said, Pharaoh didn't really appoint Joseph the man second in command, but he respected and he saw the God in working through Joseph and in Joseph, and he appointed Joseph based upon that. So he appointed the God in Joseph second in command. And another point I just want to make out of this very quickly is, even before all this happened, before Joseph even interpreted the dreams, when they went, because now the butler remembered, as we talked about yesterday as well too, the butler remembered that Joseph was able to interpret dreams, and he was locked away in prison when Pharaoh now had his dream and he needed someone to interpret it. So the butler told Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and it says they quickly went to get Joseph, but then Joseph, it says he stopped, he shaved, because he was in prison now for 2 years. He shaved and he changed his garments, he changed his raiment, and then he went and presented himself to Pharaoh. So that's another important lesson that we can learn from this chapter. It's just the importance of even making that first appearance, because they're saying that the first appearance is so important. There's nothing like a first appearance, or a first impression. But Joseph understood this, so he presents himself, because if you think about it, when you meet people, the first time you see them, what you see, you immediately generate an impression of them. You immediately generate if you're going to be, how you feel about them, just based on how you see them or how you view them. So So it's important for us as we go around to present ourselves, if we're going to be working with God, as we were just talking about before, and really being used by God and, letting the power of God be demonstrated through us, then we need to present ourselves as such, because you don't know. Like, for instance, if Joseph came there and he still looked like he was in the rags, he was in prison for the last 2 years, he didn't shave, then Pharaoh would not have received him the same way. He wouldn't have seen him the same way. So Joseph was wise enough then to actually change his appearance and present himself in a way that he would be respectable. So what we can learn from that is that we need to carry ourselves and dress appropriately if we're representing God, if we're living our lives as a demonstration of God's power in the earth. So we need to dress appropriately. We need to take care of our bodies. You eat right, exercise, and do things like that. But that's another thing that we can do. So when we meet people and we're confessing God and speaking about God, then we actually are true, good examples, I should say. So we really represent and we look like we know what we're talking about, or that we are respectable in that sense. But that's another lesson. Even if you go further on in the chapter, when Pharaoh then changes Joseph's position, makes him second in command, one of the first things he does also is change his clothes as well too, and he gives him a ring, and he changes his appearance, gives him fine linen. So Pharaoh understood that too. So when you have to dress according to the part. So Pharaoh dressed him according to the part. Now that he's second in command, he represents who Pharaoh is in the land. So now Pharaoh had to change his clothes to be representative of that. But now for us, when we walk around and we know that we're representing God, we should carry ourselves in the same way too. So as I go throughout the day, even I'm running down to the store, I used to just, you might just throw on some clothes just to run down to the store, but you got to I actually now, will dress a little bit different just to even run down to the store, and especially even with when I go traveling in my vessel, which is a whole other thing. You can't just dress anyway, because you might come across people and you want to make sure you come across with the correct impression, because what they see first is how they're really going to they get that impression off of your first appearance. So you want to make sure that you're always representing the God, or God's nature in your appearance. So those are the lessons I want to bring up from today. There's a lot of stuff in this chapter, but I encourage you, like I said, to read the chapter and add it to our blog. And we will talk to you tomorrow. Create yourself a wonderfully blessed day today.